back to the watch. And since we've last been watching, we had space whales, flashbacks, fan service, and now we're back into it. What did you think of this episode?
We're talking about Ahsoka.
Well, they clicked on the video.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Yeah, interesting. Like, in terms of an episode, there was more happening in this than everything else for the most part. I was done last week. I'm content with my scene that I got last week. We got to. Oh, sorry, I was about to say a spoiler. Yeah, you know, I'm not a Rebels fan. I think we've said this. So, was it that bad? Was it as bad as everything else? Let's put it that way. What
do you think?
No, I think this was better than what the last couple of episodes.
I completely agree. I think this is the best episode we've had. Separate from the fan service things we've had, people would, probably rate things differently. But for me, at least, this is the best episode we've had in the whole season because it actually feels like we've gone places and done things. It's still a little bit slow, but I feel like if this was the first...
It's very slow. It really is.
It's just the pacing of the show.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. Okay, yes, the pacing is slow. The show is paced slow, so I guess you can't really criticize it there.
Yeah, but for its pacing,
that's what they're going for.
This episode was good.
Yeah. It's just a bit too slow for my taste.
Yeah, what would you give it out of 10? The last one you gave was like an 8 or 9 or something, wasn't it? Last episode.
Yeah, for that one specific scene.
Yeah. And I gave it like a 2.
I'd probably give this one more like a 6, 7. You know. I'm sure it would be higher if I was a Rebels fan, but for the most part, it's definitely, like you said, it's the best so far.
Yeah.
In terms of a complete episode. Like, for example, when I was talking about the last episode, I was talking specifically the only thing that I liked was the flashback stuff. Everything else is bad. This one, on average, the whole episode is much more of an episode of something.
Yeah,
It's a lot better.
No, I completely agree. I'd give this a standard 7. It didn't greatly offend me in any ways. There were some things I was actually happy to see. They did some things we've been waiting for, and I wasn't disappointed. I was somewhat impressed. But at the same time, like you, Rebels, it just doesn't hit that same note for me. Lots of people, they'll watch the stuff and they'll say, wow, this thing happened and I felt so emotional. I think it's just because I'm not connected to that other material, and they don't spend much time in this season actually building up that connection, people who may have not watched that stuff. And so when things happen, I don't get that same hit obviously other people have gotten.
Right.
In terms of like the way that we've led to this point, there's obviously issues with, previous episode, the space whales and stuff. That's just, I think, that's lore stuff that I'm going to not be happy with because Filoni's taken over and he's done things. I mean, George does the same thing as well. It happens in Star Wars a lot, repeatedly. Like, things like people were upset Ewoks could take over Stormtroopers in episode 6 because it kind of didn't make sense. And I get that. But there's just things in the world building they've done that I'm like... I can't control this. Disney's just done this stuff. So separating it from that, I enjoy this episode the most. In fact, I'm somewhat a bit hopeful if this is what we're going through for the last 2 episodes after this. I think I might end up enjoying Ahsoka in the end, which is very surprising because at the start of this, I was not very optimistic.
I didn't want to watch any of this, and I'm ambivalent on Star Wars at this point. I'm sick of all the stuff that has happened with Star Wars. So I'm much less like either way. I'm like I'm kind of done with what Disney has done with Star Wars, to be honest. I'm content with what we got last week. That flashback scene. That I could have just watched that on YouTube. I didn't have to watch the whole episode.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm pretty sure Disney released like that whole segment on the YouTube channel as well, which is so funny.
Yeah. But for the most part, I do somewhat agree that I think the next couple of episodes are going to be a lot better than the previous ones we've gotten. But in terms of the show as a whole, it's still like I stand by our original comments that we made in like the first one. It's Rebels live action, and I'm just not that into Rebels, to be honest. But that's just me. That's just me, at least.
Should we get into spoilers now?
I think we should
it's
get into
time
spoilers.
to
I think we should
basically do a synopsis of the episode and say things we may or may not have liked. So we start off. Ahsoka's in the space whale.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
flying through hyperspace that looks Not like hyperspace.
It looked different because they were doing it organically, weren't they? This time it wasn't.
Well,
with the
no,
hyperdrive.
because even when they were in the hyperdrive one, it looked the same.
So they're going to different galaxies.
Yeah, so for some reason that looks different.
It looks different.
I have no idea why. That doesn't make
Maybe
sense
stars
to me.
just go by differently. I don't know. And they had this discussion Ahsoka and the droid about old stories and it's whenever Ahsoka is in these episodes, whenever she talks, nothing makes sense or progresses or whatever. It's just like her splitting some emotional feelings, people repeating that back and forth, and then eventually something happens in the plot that they stop and move on.
Something you just said triggered a thought in my head. I'm pretty sure that this episode has the least amount of Ahsoka in the whole season.
That opening scene is all we get.
All we've got of her, and then the rest of the episode, she's not in any of it.
Yeah.
I just realized that.
Yep.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
Continue on.
Well, because they talk about, how the droid, I always forget his name.
Hugh Yang.
Hu Yang used to tell stories, to the younglings in the Jedi Temple. And he's like, "Oh, so go. Do you want me to tell you one back in the day? Let's rekindle some memories here." And she's like, "Nah, I'm not in the mood for it." And then he's like, "Oh, okay. Well, do you want to tell me a story?" No, I'm not in the mood for it. Actually, I want one of your stories. And he goes, "Oh, okay. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away." I think out of everything in this episode, this is my biggest gripe. Like this scene.
The Ahsoka scene.
The Ahsoka scene. Because nothing is really said. And then they try to kind of bait us with a long time ago. Like, remember guys, this is still Star Wars. Because I think what happens in this episode a lot, there are elements of Star Wars still here, but there's a lot of new stuff, especially Disney stuff, and they're kind of reworking a lot of the lore. I think they're trying to, for very original trilogy fans, remind people that this is still Star Wars. This is what we're calling Star Wars now.
There was a lot of stuff in the lore that I haven't heard about, and I am sure that it is brand new stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is brand new. There's was it the Night Sister stuff?
Yeah, that's their home world, and then you see the Night Sister.
That's a lot of Disney,
new stuff.
Disney crap.
Yeah. But after that scene, basically we get a scene where Sabine is in jail because she went with the bad guys willingly in the previous episodes. And surprise, surprise, they've reneged on their deal, obviously. And they're dropping out of hyperspace.
Yeah.
And they've landed at a new world, in a new galaxy, the one where Thrawn is. The home world of the Night Sisters. Yeah. And then they go to the world.
I just find it so funny because they talking about Sabine's deal that they've made with her, and the young people always well, don't break the deal with her, guys. Don't alter the deal. Don't. I'm like, are you guys bad or not? Everyone's like, oh, we're gonna be trustful. That bit kind of rubbing the wrong one because I'm like, these are meant to be the villains.
It's ridiculous.
And
it's a child's view.
The apprentice wanted to kill Sabine, and the whole episode's oh, I don't like you. But then when the higher ups are questioning whether or not they should follow along with the deal, she's like, don't break the deal with her. How could you do that? I thought we were the good guys. I'm like, lady, you've got a red lightsaber. I don't think you're the good guy here.
But basically, they get down to the planet's surface, and you're seeing Night Sister statues, stuff like that. They land at a random,
Pella.
What would you call it? Cliff.
Yeah.
Where there's three. It's interesting because I thought the mothers of the Night Sisters, there was just one. Think of it like a one king at a time type deal.
Yeah.
This one has three mothers all at the same time. So I think that's a new lore thing. I don't know. I'm pretty sure. But there's three mothers of the Night Sisters, and they are, they greet them. They, where's Thrawn? He's coming. That sort of thing. They've got these weird little orb.
The Pokeballs.
Yeah.
That float. And
Yeah. And they basically they see Sabine, and they're like, she's dangerous.
She's a Jedi. I smell it.
Yeah. So they put her away until Thrawn comes, and then basically Thrawn arrives.
Yeah.
Go. You go.
No. You have something you want to say. No. I want to hear your thoughts on this first. I'm more curious than.
So we see Thrawn for the first time in live action. I personally was a big fan of is it Benedict Cumberbatch?
I think it was.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The fan casting of him, personally, I was more of a fan of that. The guy who plays him, I can't remember his name, but he's been in a lot of stuff. He's a great actor. I don't think he does a bad job at all. I don't think that. It's just, I couldn't stop looking at his hairline.
Really, his hairline was
Yeah,
the thing that was drawing
It was
you.
so like stark. Like it went from like a blue to
Yeah.
like a black browny color, and it
Right.
was so. Yeah, my eyes were just drawn to his hairline for some reason. I don't know why. I was just like,
Right.
whoa, like that's just a weird little nitpick of me thing. But I thought he did a good job as Thrawn. For
I
the
think
most
so
part.
too. I think his delivery was very well.
Mm.
I've been listening to the audiobook as the Empire, and so like Thrawn is very like
Yeah.
envisioned in my brain, and so seeing him on screen, I was very concerned because, like, for example, with Kenobi, the way that they did some of the Inquisitors to live action was not good, and so I was actually very horrified when they initially announced Thrawn to be live action. But this one, I think the way that the actor speaks is on. I can close my eyes and I'm like, yep, okay, I can see Thrawn in like my mind's eye. The way that he acts in this, I think, is completely like Thrawn.
Is on brand. Yeah.
Because that was my main concern for bringing Thrawn into live action. I thought they weren't going to do him justice as this great general plan. Like, he was so good at just scheming at things.
Yeah.
And one of the things he says in the last episode, or the last part of the episode, when he finds about Ahsoka, he's like, tell me all about her, where she's from, who her master is. And that's very Thrawn. I'm like, good, okay, they are following along with his character. And I know all the decisions that he makes in the episode, I'm like, that's something that Thrawn would do. There's a part where they go and send out squadrons to follow Sabine and stuff. Yeah. And they're like, oh, we should take more because they're Jedi.
He's like, I've been here a long time and I don't have that many.
Yeah, so 2 will suffice. And I'm like, the way that so I'm very happy. My only thing is that
it's just logic.
Yeah.
Yes, he's logical.
But like,
I get
that's something that is
get what you're saying. I get what you're
Star
saying.
Wars
I agree.
and just sci-fi in general. It's usually very absent, and so I think the reason why I like Thrawn a lot is because he's so logical in this world that doesn't make sense all the time because it's like a fantasy science fiction. Yeah. I lost my train of thought now, but okay. My one thing with Thrawn, and I think this is just a nitpick, and something that because he's so well cast in terms of the actor portraying him well, I'm not too fast, but I would have just picked someone who was a bit younger. And like, he looks a lot more like frail and older than I would have imagined
that's
him.
why I was like the Benedict the fan casting I thought was pretty good. This one he seems older.
Yeah.
You know, it is a nitpick. It is a nitpick.
Because I'm fine though, because he portrays the character well. He can speak it, and when he walks into a room, I'm like, oh yeah, that's Thrawn. That's Thrawn. He's just a bit older, you know.
Yeah. What about the Stormtroopers?
I liked it.
I didn't.
You didn't like it? I thought you would like the red.
I'm sick of like. Remember when we got Mando season 1 and we see the Stormtroopers in the Outer Rim and they're all dirty and muddy and stuff like that. And I go, this seems realistic because you're out like
in the dust.
Like for example, when we're out in doing stuff in our kit, it gets muddy and dirty and stuff. I like that. However, in this, it's like they've got ribbons on them. They've got like weird thing, and I don't know why.
Yeah,
I feel like that's what throws me because they still have their starship, their Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
And for some reason, they've changed face plates. Some reason they have different colored helmets, every single one of them. And then other ones have like gold on them. I just don't know why. And I feel like that's what confuses me.
Right. Because my
Stormtroopers are supposed to be like a cohesive...
Yeah, like they're all the same. They're like clones, basically.
Yes.
But then
that's
with
why
Filoni and clones, you know, he changed them from
the
movie clones to
these
but
Stormtroopers were even like clones were, they humanized them and gave them more personalities. But when the Stormtroopers, they were basically like, no, they're not. They're just a fighting.
To Thrawn, every person in the Empire, you meant to all be working in unison.
Yes.
There's no individualism in the Empire.
Exactly. Especially when it comes to like someone like Thrawn, who's very much like, you know,
we are all one in purpose.
Yeah.
And if you're not, then you're against me type thing.
That's why I feel like it confused me more than anything.
I did feel it was look, I'm mixed about it because it did feel out of place for Thrawn. I feel like he'd be someone who like, we follow the code because he himself was like very clean and well kept.
He was very much like, we're still in the Imperial.
In the Empire, yeah. And so, but part of me was also like, I like the fact that the ship was kind of broken down. They'd been attacked because
it's the same ship. I'm pretty sure.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure it's the same ship.
Okay.
I saw some big gouges from the thing. I think it's the same ship.
Yeah. Because
if you don't know what I'm talking about the finale of Rebels when him and Ezra go. I think it's the same Star Destroyer.
Yeah. I like the idea of that they've been trying to survive. That's the thing I like about the design. Like there's parts of Stormtroopers where they have cracks and stuff. The gold thing might just be that they only have that material, but at the same time, it's like it's gold and like very like rich looking.
Yeah, okay, yes, I
It's
agree.
an aesthetic that I think is cool, but in terms of what Thrawn would do, I don't think he would do it.
Exactly, and sorry, I'm getting hung up on this a little bit. It's just
It's important.
think about it, like they all look like a fighting unit, don't
Yeah.
they? They all kind of look like they all belong together. But when you actually observe what they're all got, you go, well, that kind of doesn't make sense. They have like gold masks and gold. Some stormtroopers have different colored helmets, and then all have the ribbons for some reason. So it's just it feels out of place.
Yeah.
I get what they're going for, and it is a nitpick. I agree. I will. It just for some reason I wasn't feeling it.
Yeah, I
that
think
one little thing.
with some smarter adjustments, they could still make it look like, because I feel like what they're trying to do is trying to make it feel like they have limited resources, and so, for example, you can't get new uniforms. You got to fix the one that you already have.
The only issue I have with that is they still have the Star Destroyer.
Yeah,
And it's still moving about. It's
Yeah.
not like crashed down or anything. Like it still has fuel and stuff,
yeah.
which is like
They've been roaming around
Yes,
this
yes,
place,
yes,
so it's like so many questions with that.
exactly. But sorry, we got hung up on that for a minute. Well, I got hung up on that for a minute. But basically, Thrawn comes back. He introduces the Jedi, the former Jedi, the mercenaries. They're called Balin Skull and the apprentice. And Thrawn, I'm surprised that he knew. He's like General Balin.
Yeah.
He's like, we're not Jedi anymore, which is I like that. It's
Yeah.
a callback, and it makes sense for someone like Thrawn's character. 'Cause
Yeah.
he's going to make that connection instantly.
Yeah.
A logical.
Yep. Oh, he's an army man.
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
That's the way he works.
But then he basically decides that he's going to use Sabine as bait to find Ezra,
Yep.
which makes sense. It just baffles me when he tells her like, "Oh, I'm going to let you go," blah blah. Everybody always just goes, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, they're not untrustworthy. Like,
Yeah.
the bad guy's gonna let me go, huh? This, and you know what? In the next episode, she's gonna be like, "It's a trap," and I'll be like, "Nada."
We're talking about Thrawn letting Sabine go for the sole purpose of finding Ezra,
That's right. And
to then attack them. Like, it's so logical.
oh, but apparently in this show, they're not very logical, anyways.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sabine runs off, and then Thrawn sends the mercenaries off to follow them from a distance.
Yep.
And then basically he tells the witch lady, you know what, they can do whatever they want. When it's time to leave, we're out of here. I don't care who we're leaving with.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, cool. That sounds like Thrawn as well.
that makes
Like,
sense.
He's
Yeah.
just like,
I've been here long enough.
yeah,
I'm getting
time to
back.
get back to the the empire that I want to rebuild.
Yeah.
And then Sabine goes. They give her all her weapons, a lightsaber, and gives her a dog. That, yeah, and then she just goes out to find Ezra.
Something that brought up is she gets attacked by a couple of people. She meets some people on the road looking for Ezra. All this standard stuff you would expect. I hated how the lightsabers bounce off the armor, dude. She gets attacked by some random, I don't know, what are we going to call them? Bandits?
Yeah, I think
Gets
that's the
attacked by
form.
bandits. The lightsaber cuts through their weapons, but bounces off their armor.
Yeah.
It's
Apparently,
so obvious though.
all the armor is just
Beskar. Or
yeah.
Cortosis.
Yeah.
That's a law.
Which you would think, in a different galaxy far, far away where they don't have lightsabers, that they wouldn't have anything to protect against it.
Comical though.
Yeah.
It bounces.
Yeah.
She hits him like 3 times and it's boink. I'm like, oh, I don't like this.
Yeah. I mean, there's also stuff that, again, this is just Star Wars logic, where like, I feel like Sabine should have her helmet, because there's parts where they're shooting her and the bullets go straight to the bits of armor that she's wearing, never for the face that's like uncovered.
Well, she left that back with Ahsoka.
Yeah, well, that's her fault, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
it's stupid.
But then she finds some rock people.
What did you think of them?
They reminded me of, what is it? The Disney show, the animated show, Rapunzel? No. Frozen?
Oh yeah, the Frozen one. Yeah,
How they got the rock.
Yep.
people?
I think people on Twitter made a correlation with that. They were like, "Oh yeah."
Oh yeah, well, that just reminded me instantly of
Yeah.
that. And then obviously, when you run across the rock people, they're going to take you straight to Ezra.
Yeah.
And they do.
I just have
That's just the logical
Okay.
question of that, you know.
logical question. If they have like a caravan park, the moment these group, they're like little shell people with rocks.
Yeah.
And they have a caravan park where they move around a lot. But for some reason, this group was out in a different area, and they were just hiding as rocks. Like, is that what you do when you leave for work each day? Bye, honey, I'm going to go hide in the mountains as rocks with my friends. And then you come back, oh, tough day, nearly got killed. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
To play devil's advocate, I reckon they were just traveling. And then when Sabine came across, they just
turned to
hit as rocks, yeah.
Okay.
And then obviously she goes, I'm friendly. And they go, oh, cool. And then they go back to what baffles me even more is that, like, if Thrawn wants to destroy Ezra, all he has to do is just fly around, which he's been doing, and just see the trailer park and go, yeah, like, it really is that easy.
Yeah.
That's just a nitpick, I guess. But the rock people take it back to the place, and guess who's there? Ezra. I'm surprised that we saw them. Both Thrawn and Ezra.
Ezra in the same episode.
Yeah.
And it was very early on. It was like, at least by the middle part, then you get the both reunions.
Yeah, and this is close to the end of the episode. And something I want to mention is, by this point, there's still no Ahsoka. So Ahsoka literally was only in the first couple of minutes of the episode.
And that's it. She doesn't appear at all for the rest of the episode.
At all. And then, what else happened after that? They reunited. I found it very lackluster. To be honest, I did.
I'm the exact same, but I feel like it might just be a Rebels thing that we just don't have that. But even
but even then, she hasn't seen him in how many years?
Yeah.
And he comes around the corner and she goes,
buddy,
how you going?
friend zoned, you and me.
But it's not even like she runs up and hugs him and goes, oh, Ezra. It's like basically he comes around the corner and she goes, it's been a while. And then they just have a conversation. I'm like,
and then they hug.
You
they
literally
do a little hug and they go,
you did all of this just to.
I missed you, Ezra.
Oh, please stop. It was very lackluster, the reunion between those two. If I'm being honest, it was. And then what else?
Oh, then he's like, oh, I can't wait to go home. And that's right. He's like, how'd you get here? What happened? And she's like, can we just not talk about it right now? All right, I'm seeing you. Let's just enjoy each other's company right now.
It was funny because she's like, my Thrawn to rid the my plan to rid Thrawn of the galaxy worked, right? Right? And she's like,
yeah, but also
it
put
works.
it back because
until I'm here, so technically other people are here as well. It was just that was funny. It was funny.
It was funny, but also I was like, Sabine, you got some things to answer to now. Like, yeah. So that happened, and then they just walk off, don't they?
Yeah. There's not really much that happens after that. But to be fair, there was a lot that. This is what I think about. Like, did a lot happen in this episode? It feels like a lot happened, but if I really think about it, they got to a planet and they found Ezra.
Well, this is the pacing I kind of wanted in the previous episodes, because in some parts we were like, they talk for a lot, they get in a ship and travel somewhere, don't go on the planet to do a fight, and then like the next episode they're on the planet and they do a thing, and next episode they're still on the planet and to the very end, and they it's.
To be fair, this had faster pacing than everything that's came like all the other episodes.
At least this one's like, we're there, here's new people, here's new characters, got Ezra, now we're getting out. Like it felt a lot more complete. So I'm happy for that, and hopefully the pacing picks up more and more as we get to the end. So they basically go off, and then Thrawn is basically packing everything into the ship, and they're going to go. But is Ahsoka going to get there in time? I don't know. But because there was a fair amount though. Yeah, don't worry. I'm just trying to think of like timing of when they left and then when Ahsoka left. Obviously, there was quite a gap because she had the whole vision and when found the whales, like.
Oh yeah,
so all this could have happened. Yeah.
But do remember, she's like, we can't leave for 3 days.
Yeah.
Why? Because we can't leave for 3 days.
We can't leave for 3 days.
Yeah. But that's for the most part the episode. It was definitely a lot better than previous episodes. I'm still pretty ambivalent just because I'm not the biggest Rebels fan.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like I feel like we could enjoy this more, but they just don't focus on that. They don't retread ground for people who aren't as like they don't find connections for us to feel associated with. Like it's very much like there's a history. But even then, there's stuff like.
But all right, look, okay. A bit bigger picture, a bit away from Ahsoka.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm so burnt on Star Wars and the reason why I can't get excited about Star Wars is even if this show is good, right? The next show won't be. And the next show won't be. And even if it's good, let's say something like Mando. I really liked Mando season 1, season 2. But by season 3, the same people who have been working on all the episodes, all of a sudden season 3 is not good.
They always find a way to ruin it.
Yes. And this is where I've gotten to this point where it's like, even if a show isn't the worst thing in the world, I'm like, "Ugh, it's just Star Wars. I'm sick of Disney's Star Wars. And what do we have coming up after this? Like Acolyte, which looks very, very not good.
That is... See, I think Ahsoka is the damage control before that comes out.
Right, but even then, Ahsoka is doing, like, just a bit on numbers, from what I've seen and what I've read, it's doing worse than pretty much everything. Like, Andor didn't do well. Season 3 of Mando did... And then Ahsoka season 3 is not doing... Season 1 isn't doing that well. And then the last massive thing was Kenobi, and that did damage.
Yeah.
So, like... I hope the next two... how many episodes?
I think there's 2 more left.
What are we up to?
With 6.
6, 7, 8. Yeah, I think 2 more episodes. I'm sure that'll actually be not bad episodes. Considering what they've set the next episodes to be.
My concern is just going to be the bait and switch they might do.
In what way?
I don't know. But they always do it. Or they'll do something that, with Kenobi.
Well, okay.
They gave us... How many episodes of just
Kenobi's trash.
An absolute goose chase?
Yeah, Kenobi's terrible.
And then at the very end, they're like, Qui-Gon.
Right.
Oh, look, there's Qui-Gon.
But to be fair, so far they haven't bait and switched anything. They said Anakin was going to be in it. He's been in it. They said Thrawn and Ezra was going to be in it. They've both been in it. So far they haven't bait and switched anything.
I'm also curious to see how this ends. Where we're going to finish this. Is it going to be on a cliffhanger thing of
I
like
reckon it will be.
Thrawn and Ezra will return back and enter the Empire, movie by Dave Filoni? Or is it going to be very much like... Because Thrawn's coming back to the galaxy, so it's going to be left on a cliffhanger, and then give us Acolyte as the next thing, which is going to be completely separate from all the stuff they've been leading up to.
I just had an interesting thought. What happens to the canon if Thrawn returns? Because remember, we get the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
That exists, right?
That's the crazy thing. They're going to have all of this stuff,
and
then somehow they go back to the First Order.
Yeah.
And Rey. And like all of that. How is that going to, tie itself into a nice little pretty bow?
Sorry, that just was a thought that came across my head. I'm like, well, because I could have understood how we get the First Order, we get all the blah, 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 if Thrawn wasn't involved.
Yeah.
But with Thrawn back in the galaxy, I don't see a way, unless the Rebels cast defeat him again. It's like, okay, he's not really that big of a threat.
And I just don't know what they're going to do, because I know what fans like myself want, and that's the Luke, Leia, Han, trilogy that we never got. But then it's like going to be underwhelming with the Rebels cast if they do it instead, because everyone's going to be like, well, this was better in the books, and now you're just replacing characters with these other, less loved characters, I think, at least. And at the end of the day, it's, like you said, going to end with them all dying because none of them show up in the sequel trilogy.
Yeah. It just doesn't make sense for them to be around during that time period.
And the more shows they make, the closer we are getting to that.
Because they just love staying in this time period for some reason. But that's pretty much been the whole episode of Ahsoka. In generalized thoughts, what would you give it? Like, just summarize all of it.
It was the best episode so far.
Okay. What do you think of the season so far? The whole season so far?
How would I explain it? It's not good, but I'm not as offended as I was with Kenobi.
But I mean,
it's very.
That's like what?
Let me explain it. It's very. Am I gonna watch it again? No. I've actually thought about watching Mando season 1 again because of how good it was and how much I enjoyed it, to see whether it was just like rose tinted glasses because I was like, oh, finally some Star Wars that's decent, or whether it was actually good. Right. With Ahsoka, I don't have any. Funny actually. You know how we disagreed last week about the flashbacks with Anakin and Ahsoka. I actually watched that again after we did the review to see if I was being too harsh on myself or hard on the thing. I wasn't. I still didn't feel anything. And so this season is very just meh to me. Because you know what? It promises lots of things, but doesn't deliver on much. Because like it kind of promises Clone Wars live action, and it gives us a little taste of what could have been.
What's the thing? It's like, I think, because you said to me you want to rewatch the originals, you just haven't had time.
Yeah,
I think you should rewatch everything.
Yeah,
just to see how you feel after you've rewatched everything, because you might just be at a point where you're like, I just don't care about Star Wars that much.
I do care.
Do you though?
I do care.
Yeah.
If you give me that last scene in Return of the Jedi, where like Vader's going around and Luke's hiding, and he's all like, "Yes, your sister. If you don't turn to the dark side, maybe she will." And then his whole no, like that every single time. Oh, I feel it. I feel it. Ahsoka, I don't get any of that.
Okay.
That's just that.
Yeah. So your final score for the episode?
It's a 7.
7?
It's not bad, but it doesn't. I mean, I'm just happy to see Thrawn, and that they did a good version of him.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. That's basically everything, guys. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed. Do you want to take us out?
And as always, stay on watch.